TARP's top cop, but also hope that the actual perpetrators of this mess could ultimately get their comeuppance, and we may, in fact, be able to restore capitalism in this country. This weekend, TARP Special Inspector General Neil Barofsky issued his latest report. The simple summation, TARP is not only not working, it could actually be putting us at greater risk by further empowering the organizations that brought us to the brink, but giving them even more of other people's money and making them feel for certain they can get away with it. And I'll quote, if TARP saved our financial system from driving off a cliff back in 2008, absent meaningful reform, we are still driving on the same winding mountain road, but this time in a faster car. That from Neil Barofsky's report over the weekend. Now on top of calls for systemic changes and greater transparency, which you and I both know are necessary to move forward, Barofsky's office has also thankfully launched a wave of criminal and civil investigations ranging from insider trading to public corruption in the wake of the government bailout. Again, that TARP money originally was, think about weapons of mass destruction. The TARP money was created to create a marketplace for all these toxic assets, and as soon as it was approved, the money was just taken and given basically without strings to the banks, and they don't even know where half the money is at this point. What has the inspector uncovered, and who, if anyone, will take the fall? Joining us now, the man on the beat, Special Inspector General, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, Neil Barofsky. And Mr. Inspector, it is a pleasure to see you, sir. You say you've launched a string of inquiries here. What actual powers do you have when you identify either civil or criminal wrongdoing?
Well, we have full law enforcement authority. We're almost like a smaller version of the FBI dedicated exclusively to the TARP. So I have, special agents with gun badges, arrest authority. We've executed search warrants, the power to arrest. Anything that a normal federal law enforcement agency has, we have at our disposal.
And what types of investigations do you have ongoing right now? What types of crimes? On a small level, this is just with TARP money being sort of misallocated, mishandled. We'll get to the bigger stuff in a second.
That's exactly right. We have a little bit more than 75 investigations, and they really run the full gamut of what you would expect. And because, as we've discussed before, a TARP is really 10 different programs right now. So, for example, if a bank or a financial institution was cooking its books or committing accounting fraud when they applied for TARP funds, that falls squarely within our jurisdiction. And we have a number of investigations into banks who basically were lying to steal TARP funds. We're looking at the mortgage modification program. There, with servicers and potential fraudsters who are going out there and taking advantage of struggling homeowners. We're looking at insider trading cases around TARP announcements. There's really a wide array of different types of criminal white-collar investigations that we're conducting.
Moving to bigger investigations, you have also launched an investigation into the Federal Reserve's cooperation with your group when it comes to the disclosure of the email trail of the Federal Reserve and the money given to AIG, and then the AIG money given to Goldman Sachs and the other banks. You've stated that your group didn't receive many of the documents related to the New York Federal Reserve that were provided to Congress. Why the discrepancy, and where do you stand relative to the Fed, AIG, and Goldman?
Well, that's absolutely correct, and the question of why is the one that we're going to find out the answer, because we did request certain documents from the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. We didn't receive them, and then after documents started getting released in response to a congressional inquiry, we found out there was a whole bunch of documents in there that we had never received, and we were under the impression it simply did not exist. So we've launched an investigation to find out the why. Was it purposeful obstruction of justice? Was it a mistake? Was it incompetence?
Yeah.
We don't know the answer yet, but we're going to find out.
I think that I speak for more than myself when I ask you this next question. How long will the American people have to wait until we see who will be legally accountable for fraud at a place like AIG Financial Products, who will be legally accountable for extracting wealth using this mechanism, and will we ever see handcuffs or clawbacks?
I think we're certainly going to see handcuffs. We have more than 75 criminal investigations ongoing. It's hard to predict exactly when those are going to result in formal criminal charges. We have indicted several individuals for some smaller frauds in Tennessee and Atlanta. Some of the bigger cases, I think some of the larger scale frauds are in the pipeline. It's hard to predict exactly, because the one thing we don't have is the ability to actually bring the cases ourselves. We have to work through the Department of Justice. analysis, but there's some significant cases in the pipeline, and I think over the next few months we're going to start seeing some results.
The Treasury Secretary, as we all know, has the greatest power to reveal information to all of us so that we can figure out what exactly happened and what is happening. He also has a tremendous power to make it difficult for us to acquire information. I want to offer his comments in regard to the taxpayers' relationship with AIG when he testified recently, and get your sense as to whether he's in fact being transparent with us. Take a listen to the Treasury Secretary.
If you join with the President in adopting his proposed financial responsibility fee, American taxpayers will not have to pay 1 cent for the actions we took in AIG or the actions we took with the authority Congress gave the administration to stabilize this financial crisis. We expect that this particular transaction, the very one that is the heart of so much controversy, will be paid off in full with interest, generating some profit for the American taxpayer.
Does that cross with your analysis, sir?
Well, what that is it's a very carefully calibrated statement, the second part, with respect to the taxpayer being made whole on a part of the AIG counterparty transactions. And we were very critical. Treasury put out a statement similar to this recently, and we've been very critical of it. It suggests that we're going to get 100 cents on the dollar back for the payment of 100 cents on the dollar for those securities. And what the Secretary stated and what the Treasury Department is talking about is the payments to AIG counterparties were really in two parts. On one part was part of a Federal Reserve loan, and the other part was collateral payments made separately by AIG. Yeah. Now, on the one part, on the Federal Reserve part, it is true that that portion of the loan, a little bit less than half, will probably get paid back with interest. The other part is really inextricably intertwined with all the other losses at AIG, projected recently at being a $30 billion loss. So someone who's not as familiar as we are with the intricacies of this transaction could hear that statement or hear Treasury's formal statement issued before and be left with the misimpression that, hey, we're going to be whole in these transactions. And that's not true, and that's not transparent, and frankly, I think it's unacceptable.
Why is it that the U.S. taxpayer in general is expected to be grateful for the fact that trading positions that never should have been taken by financial institutions whose executives were purely trying to get the biggest possible bonus by betting the biggest possible hand, even if they didn't have the money? Why are we being told that it's a good thing that we've paid out their bets for them under blackmail of collapsing our financial system, and we're supposed to be grateful when they can return any of it to us? Meanwhile, we're not supposed to reform the system that let them make the bets, nor are we supposed to claw back any of the money, nor are we supposed to have windfall profits taxes for the bonuses they made with our taxpayer money. Is that because taxpayers are not actual human beings, and as a result, they are designed to be harvested like a plant so that traders can trade?
I think you hit the nail right on the head there, Dylan, particularly when you talk about reform. I mean, the justifications for giving all of this money was to save the system from collapse. And when we gave this money, and then Secretary Paulson, I think, said it really at the time, that the United States government was going to stand by these institutions and not let them fail. That may have been fine as a short-term strategy to prevent a collapse of the financial system, but where has it left us long-term? It's left us with an explicit guarantee that no matter what happens, the heads I win, tails taxpayer bail me out, that these companies are now incentivized to take higher and higher risks, knowing that the taxpayer is going to back them up. And that is an enormous problem. Yeah. And the fact that the TARP got extended, and while we don't criticize that as a policy decision, that sends a message to Wall Street that the Secretary is going to keep a several $100 billion war chest available for any future bailouts, at least through October of this year.
And if you fundamentally believe allowing a few people to gamble to get rich is more important than human beings, isn't this the best way to go?
It's a very, very dangerous system where we found ourselves, that's for sure.
Mr. Inspector General Borofsky, I thank you for your time.